So this is going live take two. The going live take one was kind of a disaster. So, but here we are. We're going to continue our Bhagavatam study. So, if you just give me a moment, we're going to begin with our prayers, honoring the gurus, the lineage from which this teaching, and hopefully we please all of the wonderful personalities who have disseminated this knowledge so that it can reach me and us here today. And yeah, pray for their mercy and blessings that hopefully the Supreme Lord will look upon us all favorably and bless us with transcendental vision from which we can perceive the world in eternity, in full knowledge, and in bliss. So, without further ado, Parth, I will give this to you. In previous episodes, these prayers are all explained on YouTube, but if it's still logging in, just enjoy.
Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Churunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manodisha Thapitam yena Mundale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swahantika Neha Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamala Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Idam Sajiva Sadvaita Savaduta Parijana Sahita Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakamitasya Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jaganpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta 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 Namaste Sapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhasute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Shakalpatarubhyascha Vipasitrudyevaccha Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
That was the three verses that glorify the Bhagavatam.
Narayana Namaskritya Naram Shaiva Narottama Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiraye Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Vibhavati Naishaki. Shambhatam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Vyantastoya Bhadrani Vidhanoti
All right. Let's verses mean before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer the respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Sri Krishna is the Paramatma, the super soul in the heart of each living entity, and the benefactor of the truthful devotee. Cleanses the heart of its material desires. The devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, to hear themselves virtuous, when properly heard and chanted, and by regular hearing of the Bhagavatam, and by rendering service to the pure devotee. Almost all that is troublesome to the hearts of the destroyed and loved the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His praise with transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. By hearing the Bhagavatam, and also this service of hearing the Bhagavatam is very dear to Srila Prabhupada, who is a pure devotee. So just by hearing the Bhagavatam and his purports, this is a great service. And this will actually establish love of God within all of us if we actually take to this process. And from my personal experience, this is, I'm not sure how much love of God I've accumulated, but there's much more than there was before, that I can attest to before taking to this process. So without further ado, let us continue. We were talking about the Mayavadi philosophy, this thinking oneself to be God, and the Vaishnava philosophy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was propounding. It's called Achintya Beda Beda Tattva, which means there's a simultaneous oneness. Everything is God and a part of God, but then there's a simultaneous difference, a variegatedness. I'm an individual, you're an individual, so is the grass, so is the ant, so is the dog, and so on. Everyone has their own individual experience. Why? Why would God come apart like that? For the sake of Leela, the exchange of love and play and pastimes. So this is here, and the purpose of all of our variegated existence, the Mayavadi doctrine, is to rediscover that you are God and then just merge back into God, which is kind of boring, because why would even God split in the first place if that was the whole purpose? And the Vaishnava, or the avatars like Krishna, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they've propounded that the purpose of all this is bhakti, or exchanges of love and relationship with the Lord. So this is our philosophy. This is our recommendation, and this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's heavy recommendation as well. So now he's about where we just landed last time. Him and Prakashananda Saraswati are having a discussion, and he's asking him, why are you doing all this Sankirtan? Why are you always like calling out to the Lord in love and tears and dancing? Just study Vedanta Sutra. You should know all the different allusions, this jnana, kind of the process of jnana over bhakti, which is not Bhagavad Gita. This is not, but this is what is emphasized by this sect. So the Lord, he responds in a very charming way. So Prakashananda wanted to know what caused the Lord to indulge in Sankirtan, and then we're continuing with our reading. After this inquiry, the Lord submissively replied, I have taken to the Sankirtan movement instead of the study of Vedanta because I am a great fool. The Lord thus represented himself as one of the numberless fools of this age who are absolutely incapable of studying the Vedanta philosophy. Just so you know, I'm totally a fool, and Vedanta philosophy is, it's hard. This is not an easy philosophy to understand and comprehend. And even if you think you might understand it, you probably don't. And that's what's going to be made clear. The fool's indulgence in the study of Vedanta has caused so much havoc in society. The Lord thus continued, and because I'm a great fool, my spiritual master forbade me to play with Vedanta philosophy. He's forbidden. He said that it is better that I chant the holy name of the Lord, for that would deliver me from material bondage. In this age of Kali, there is no other religion but the glorification of the Lord by the utterance of his holy name. And that injunction of all the revealed scriptures, and my spiritual master has taught me one shloka from the Brihan Naradiya Puran. And it goes, Haranam, Haranam, Haranam eva kevalam, Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatir anyatha. And that means that there is no, and it's Haranam, Haranam, Haranam. It's saying the glorification of the Lord, the glorification of the Lord, the glorification of the Lord. This is in this age of Kali, there is no other means of deliverance other than the chanting of the holy names, the chanting of the holy names, the chanting of the holy names. And then it says, Kalo nastyeva, 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 which means there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way. And, even in the Christian, Jesus, it says in Psalms that, one can be saved by calling upon the name of the Lord. That's Judaism, Christian, and Islam, I believe, would attest to that. And then also Jesus saying in his famous, the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, sacred, holy is your name. So again, here in the across the earth, we're seeing that the holy name is the emphasis for this age of religion. How to meditate, how to really put yourself in the proper position is call upon God in every situation of life. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he quotes this verse from the Brihan Naradiya Purana. And remember, these Vedantists, they love to hear all the different scriptural references. So he's using that in his, it doesn't seem like an argument. He's just making a presentation of why he does what he does. So, so it said, so on the order of my spiritual master, I chant the holy name of Hari, and I am now mad after this holy name. Whenever I utter the holy name, I forget myself completely, and sometimes I laugh, cry, and dance like a madman. I thought I had actually gone mad by this process of chanting, and therefore I asked my spiritual master about it. He informed me that this was the real effect of chanting the holy name, which produces a transcendental emotion that is a rare manifestation. It is the sign of love of God, which is the ultimate end of life. Love of God is transcendental to liberation, or mukti, and thus it is called the fifth stage of spiritual realization, above the stage of liberation. By chanting the holy name of Krishna, one attains the stage of love of God. And it was good that fortunately I was favored with the blessing. So he's, let's unpack this. I personally want to unpack this because this is something I also try to chant this thing, but unfortunately I have such a nonsense mind, and I get in the way of these potential things that could happen. But he's always mad after chanting the holy names of the Lord. He forgets himself completely. Sometimes he's laughing, crying, dancing like a madman. And he thought he actually had gone mad by this process of chanting. And then he asked his spiritual master about this divine madness that he was getting. And he informed me that this was the real effect of chanting the holy name, which produces transcendental emotion that is a rare manifestation. So just by calling the Lord's name with emotion, actually you might invoke a divine madness, which is that's a madness I'm interested in personally. I would love to go mad in love, and love between us and the Lord. So that's said to be the process here. And he said it was the sign of love of God, which is the ultimate end of life. It's the ultimate goal. It's called prayojan. The goal of life would be prema, is love for God. Love of God is transcendental to liberation. Mukti means it's better than being free from suffering. Liberation, means you're free from suffering and attachment to these temporary worldly things. So many of us are looking to be liberated in so many ways. Work sucks, this sucks, that sucks, this sucks, this sucks. And we're like, just Lord, please free me from this. And an example is like, sometimes you have to go to the bathroom And if you try and hold in going to the bathroom, it just causes more and more pain and pain and pain and pain and pain. But you finally go and relieve yourself. You're like, oh, you feel like so good. But that goodness you feel is actually just a state of you're not suffering. But that's not really the end of life, is to get the pleasures like going to the bathroom. There's real pleasure in life. After you go to the bathroom and you're relieved of your suffering, then you could focus on real, so-called real pleasures of life. So similarly, on a less crude example, if we really want to experience the joys and the gifts of life, we have to that liberation stage that just comes with it. You have to be not suffering. So love of God and acting in this love of God is so much higher than just being free from all these sufferings and these attachments of this world. And thus it is called the fifth stage of spiritual realization, above the stage of liberation. By chanting the holy name of Krishna, one attains the stage of love of God, and it was good that fortunately I was favored with the blessing. So again, just by chanting the name, even Jesus said, hallowed be thy name. How glorious and holy and sacred is the name. And it was mentioned before, the name of God is non-different from God. Just by chanting, calling to God, he becomes present right there. He's present within all things anyway, but especially in his name. And you could try it in your life. Call upon the name of God, even in jest, even joking, mocking. I actually have a really funny story about that, where my cousin actually asked me. We got in an argument, like a 2-hour argument about. Sorry, there's a little offering going on here. If you hear bells, no problem. But my cousin actually asked me, I was an atheist and he was not. He was a Christian. And we had an argument for 2 hours on whether God was real or not. He couldn't find a conclusion between us. But he said, well, wouldn't you want there to be a God? And I said, yeah, I'd love if there was a God. He could grant all my wishes, give me everything I want. That's my idea of God. But anyway, he said, well, then why don't you say, God, if you're real, show me. And he's like, what do you have to lose? And he actually defeated my argument there, because I couldn't lose anything. Even if God was real, I'd only gain. And if God wasn't real, then I wouldn't lose anything. I would just lose maybe a few seconds of my time. So I just kind of mocked in jest. I looked up at the sky. I said, God, if you're real, show me. And actually later that year, I had a really pivotal experience of the a traumatic experience, and like a out-of-body near-death type of experience. But I was shown a reality that I very much perceived, that God was indeed real. And that's kind of a funny thing that happened in my life. But just by chanting the holy name of Krishna, one attains the stage of love of God. And it was good that fortunately I was favored with the blessing. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying. On hearing this statement from the Lord, the Mayavadi sannyasi asked the Lord what was the harm in studying the Vedanta along with chanting the holy name. Prakashananda Saraswati knew well that the Lord was formerly known as Nimai Pandit, a very learned scholar of Navadvip, and his posing as a great fool was certainly to some purpose. Hearing this inquiry by the sannyasi, the Lord smiled and said, my dear sir, if you do not mind, I will answer your inquiry. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, before he took sannyas, he was Nimai Pandit. I don't know if you remember in previous readings, we were going through this, and he was like the best scholar. So for him to say, I'm a great fool and I can't handle studying Vedanta, it was perplexing Prakashananda Saraswati. So all the sannyasis there were very much pleased with the Lord for his honest dealings. He was very humble. He wasn't like, I know you're an idiot. That's sometimes, if you get that, if you're talking to someone and they praise themselves excessively, at least due to spiritual understanding, we understand that actually that person is not very advanced. So that person it has not made very much advancement with the tendency to excessively praise oneself. Actually, it's very distasteful. Someone is always saying, oh, I'm so great. Look at what I do here. Look what I do. Look what I can do like this or like that. This is Yeah, yeah. It's like kind of like want to run away from that person. Like, oh my God, like, what an ego. But and we all have this tendency, this tendency is there in us, especially in the less refined periods of our life. We're always trying to tell people how great we are. But then and actually society like tries to like encourage you to do such things. Like you're in a job interview and your job is to tell everyone how great you are, but in actually practical dealings, people like humble people instead. All the great spiritual traditions, they recommend humility, um, which could be a sign of weakness, but no, it's a great, great, great strength, the highest strength. So they were all so pleased with the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's dealings. So all the sannyasis, they were very much pleased with the Lord for his honest dealings, and they unanimously replied that they would not be offended by whatever he replied. The Lord then spoke as follows. Vedanta Sutra consists of transcendental words or sounds uttered by the transcendentalist personality of Godhead. As such, in the Vedanta, there cannot be any human deficiencies like mistake, illusion, cheating, or inefficiency, which, on the contrast, we are full of in our humanness. That's just part of being human. We make mistakes, we get illusioned, we think things are real that aren't. We cheat for our own benefit and gain, or we're inefficient. We just don't know how to do things properly. The message of the Upanishads is expressed in the Vedanta Sutra, and what is said there directly is certainly glorified. Whatever interpretations have been given by Shankaracharya have no direct bearing on the sutra, and therefore such commentation spoils everything. So the Mayavadi sect, they pride themselves in study of the Vedanta Sutra, but they don't actually study just the Vedanta Sutra. They very much study the commentary of the Vedanta Sutra by Shankaracharya. And Shankaracharya, while he actually is responsible for the removal of Buddhism from India, because Buddhism had taken over Indian philosophy at one point, and for good reason. The Buddha is actually said to be an avatar of Vishnu. You could say like Krishna coming and doing having a certain purpose. And Shankaracharya is also said to be like an avatar of Shiva, also coming to do some purpose, but ultimately not to give the greatest gift, which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this pastime is going to give. So he's saying that whatever interpretations have been given by Shankaracharya have no direct bearing on the sutra itself, and therefore such commentation spoils everything. It's not actually what the Vedanta Sutra is saying. It's his interpretation, which has another purpose. The word Brahman indicates the greatest of all. And this is very big in the Shankarite or the Prakashananda Saraswati, the Mayavad philosophy. It's all about merging back into Brahman, or the spiritual essence of all things. Indicates the greatest of all, which is full with transcendental opulences, superior to all. Brahman is ultimately the personality of Godhead. This is what they don't know. Brahman, they want to impersonalize God. God is all great, all wonderful. We're all God. We're all part of God, but God has no personality. It's just all spiritual ecstasy, but no personality. But actually, if we practically see, where do all the greatest emotions and things come? It comes through personal exchanges. Not many of us are just sitting there melting in bliss. No, where does actually good happiness is coming from? It all has to do, and even modern science has studied this. Where is happiness? Who are the happiest people in the world? It's the people who have fulfilling relationships. It doesn't matter how much money you have, how many things you have, this type of arrangement or that type of arrangement. You've got good relationships, you're happy. If you don't have good relationships, you're not happy. My wife is back there like cracking jokes at me, making me laugh, but that's part of our good relationship, at least for right now. Maybe later, something will spoil. But right now, it's good. So even these jokes, it's a good part of good relationships. But yeah, this is what makes us happy. It's good relationships. And so ultimately, having a relationship, which means that it's person to person, you don't have a relationship with non-persons, or if you're a non-person, there's no such thing as relationship. It means personality. So he's saying Brahman is ultimately the personality of Godhead, and he is covered by indirect interpretations and established as impersonal. Everything that is in the spiritual world is full of transcendental bliss, including the form, body, place, and paraphernalia of the Lord. All are eternally cognizant and blissful. It is not the fault of the Acharya Shankar that he has so interpreted Vedanta. But if someone accepts it, then certainly he is doomed. Anyone who accepts the transcendental body of the personality of Godhead as something mundane certainly commits the greatest blasphemy. So this is kind of the interpretation. You have the avatars, you have divine personality who has revealed himself to this world. And the Mayavad philosophy, they say that, oh, he was a great personality. He was realized. Wonderful. But ultimately, yeah, that was just his material body. And the real him beyond that is impersonal. But the Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying that which is related to the Lord wouldn't just come in some useless body. That which is related to the Lord and some useless personality. That which is related to the Lord is the Lord himself. So these are all these little technical things. But these actually become important when one is trying to establish tattva, or the truth by which one directs and guides your life. If you don't have the established conclusions of what's guiding why you do what you do every day, and most of us, we have no idea why we do what we do every day. We just do it. But there should be like a goal. If you're going to do sadhana or have a means of attaining one's goal, there should be a clear goal. Now, most of us, our goals are silly. Like, oh, my goal is to, make money. Okay. And then we go, I'm going to make some money. I'm going to go here and I'm going to do that to make some money. But what will we do with the money? Well, I want to help my parents. I want to do this with the money. I want to do that. Good. Yeah, no problem. But ultimately, in the scheme of life, what will that really accomplish for you, the soul? It'll all just kind of be fleeting. It might give some temporary pleasure, no doubt. Yeah. My goal is to get a lot of ice cream. Num num. But like, does ice cream make one happy? No, you eat it. It gives you a little happiness at the moment, but then later on, you're left probably more unhappy if you have lots of ice cream in your life, because the body will reciprocate with lots of ice cream and will expand. And usually, people are a bit less happy in that. But it depends on the person. But anyhow, these things do not make us happy. Ice cream, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all the highs. There's no happiness here in any of these things. At least they don't last. It gives like a little taste of happiness and then it disappears. But the Lord is saying that there's something much more than this. So instead of give my own interpretation like Shankar, maybe I should just read. That's so. Anyone who accepts the transcendental body, the personality of God, as something mundane certainly commits the greatest blasphemy. The Lord thus spoke to the sannyasi almost in the same way that he spoke to the Bhattacharya of Puri. So he gives the same teaching to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was also practicing this Mayavad philosophy, as was most of India at the time. This became the prominent philosophy. Just like Buddhism was the prominent philosophy, but in the Lord has a purpose for all these philosophies. But now And this is growing more and more. This established philosophy is Achintya Beta Beta Tattva, what I was mentioning just before. The simultaneous oneness. Yes, we are all one, part of the same universal being, but also variegated. And that variegation has a purpose. And it's for the pleasure of that supreme being. And it's for the pleasure of all of us. What's that ultimate pleasure? And it's in relationship to the Lord. And so the Lord thus spoke to the sannyasi almost in the same way he spoke to the Bhattacharya of Puri. And by forceful arguments, he nullified the Mayavad interpretations of the Vedanta Sutra. All the sannyasis there claim that the Lord was the personified Vedas and the personality of Godhead. So he just conquered all of them with his, he spoke very matter of fact. He used scriptural references. Now he's summarizing here, but it's actually elaborated in Chaitanya Charitamrita. You could actually hear what the Lord spoke on the subject and how he convinced all these very brilliant sannyasis who were supposed scholars of Vedanta Sutra, and transformed thousands of them. And he transformed their leader, Prakashananda, who was the topmost sannyasi of that school in Benares, the top city of learning in the Mayavadi philosophy. So it's amazing, actually, that he did this. All the sannyasis were converted, here's this word again, to the cult of bhakti. Remember, cult just means a religion, a way of life in the religious order. But at least in the British definition that was spoken here, now it has evolved, but converted to the cult of bhakti. All of them accepted the holy name of the Lord Sri Krishna, and they dined together with the Lord in the midst of them. Good morning. After this conversion of the sannyasis, the popularity of the Lord increased at Varanasi, and thousands of people assembled to see the Lord in person. The Lord thus established the primary importance of Srimad Bhagavat Dharma. And, so that's actually going to be what we're reading, the Bhagavatam, this main essential scripture. It's the final Purana. It's the final work of Vyasadeva, who is the great, actually, he's said to be an expansion of the Godhead himself, giving us knowledge to guide us through the ages. So all of the Vedas, which is studied throughout ancient India, is said to be composed and given in written form by Vyasadeva. But the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is we're in the intro, we're trying to get to, is said to be the final work by Vyasadeva that it summarizes all of the essence, and it gives it, if you imagine like a juice, if you get all the fiber and the pulp and the seeds and everything else out the way, and you just take the nectar like of a mango, and you get all the the stuff that gets stuck in your teeth out of the way, and you just have the ras. In India they have this dish where they do this, they kind of like juice the mango or separate just the juice of the mango, and it's called mango ras, or a mango nectar. And so this is actually, Srimad Bhagavatam is like the nectar, or maybe the cream of the milk, the best part of Vedic literature. So he recommends this Shastra to follow, and he defeated all other systems of spiritual realization. Since then, everyone at Varanasi was overwhelmed with the transcendental Sankirtan movement. So then they began joining in the Sankirtan movement, which was the group glorification. Instead of the prime importance, sit in silence in meditation and try and forget that you have a personal existence, which is like the the Mayavadi kind of philosophy. The Sankirtan movement, instead, go out, bring yourself to others in the world, and proclaim the glories of the Lord. And Sankirtan can mean many things. Most popularly, it's this chanting of this Mahamantra behind me, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And those names all have meanings. I won't get into all the meanings right now. but they're descriptions of the Lord and glorification of the Lord. And so we're constantly, everything that we do, like this class is a humble attempt at also glorifying the Lord. When everything we do becomes Sankirtan, when we go out in the streets and we're chanting the Lord's names, or we're chanting songs or prayers and things in relation to the Lord, there's so many ways that this can be done, the Sankirtan movement. But it's a completely different philosophy than trying to sit and dissolve your existence in meditation. And it said you'll get a much better result that way. And I'm practically feeling it in my life. I've done both. I started with the more meditative, not that this isn't meditative, it is meditative actually, but I started with the emphasis on the silent meditation and going within and trying to, like, think about nothing or dissolve my existence or something like this. And I've also now do the Sankirtan movement, and I personally keep doing the Sankirtan movement because it gives a lot more pleasure, a lot more pleasure. But don't take my word for it. Read a book yourself and scrutinize. And I'm confident anyone who hears this Bhagavat philosophy, which is why we're here reading it, will recognize that, oh yeah, this makes a lot of sense, even at the logical and reasonable level. And then what's to speak of the transcendental level, which is beyond all that, what you can kind of throw in the box of your mind. So everyone at Varanasi, which is like the hub of this type of philosophy, which was conquered India to that point, they began practicing the Sankirtan movement. So while the Lord was camping at Varanasi, Sanatana Goswami also arrived after retiring from office. So he's making a movement stirring. He was formerly one of the state ministers in the government of Bengal, then under the regime of Nawab Hussain Shah. He had some difficulty in getting relief from the state service. For the Nawab, who's like the king, like a local king, a Muslim king. India was conquered for past maybe 1,000 years by different, the Muslims had they'd expanded from the Middle East and took over much of the place, and they conquered much of India. And still today, and then the British reconquered it from them, and then now India today is apparently sovereign, but I'm sure there's some oligarchy running some type of thing there as well. But yeah, welcome to Kali Yuga. And we think we're sovereign in America, but we are definitely not sovereign either. We have an oligarchy running things as well. But anyway, I'm not here to talk politics. But yeah, like this. There was a very strict rulership under Muslim government, and especially the traditional Vedic practices of India were stifled in many ways. Many temples were burned and razed and converted into, like, the Taj Mahal was once a Shiva temple, and now it's like one of the great monuments of India, supposed. I've never been to the Taj Mahal. I'm not so interested, but yeah, it was actually like an invasion and a conquering, and then re-establishing our philosophy. So this happened. So Sanatana Goswami, he was under a Muslim government, and it was very strict. If you don't accept our government, and many times you were just put to death. And it seems the world is loosening up on this type of thing, but there's still some of it present. But nonetheless, it was hard for him to get relief from his job. He came to Varanasi, and the Lord taught him the principles of devotional service. He taught him about the constitutional position of the living being, the cause of his bondage under material conditions, his eternal relation with the personality of Godhead, the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his expansions in different plenary portions of incarnations, his control of different parts of the universe. Do me a favor, can you look up the word plenary? Plenary. I've seen this word so many times and I always look it up, but it never sticks. His control of different parts of the universe, the nature of his transcendental abode, devotional activities, There are different stages of development, the rules and regulations for achieving the gradual stages of spiritual perfection, the symptoms of different incarnations in different ages, and how to detect them with reference to the context of revealed scriptures. So Prabhupada was not kidding that how comprehensive this subject matter between Sanatana Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is. So in his summary of Bhagavad Gita, which is what we're reading right now, naturally we cannot just go into all of that. But so many things were taught to Sanatana Goswami. And he's saying the Lord's teachings to Sanatana Goswami form a big chapter in the text of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And to explain the whole teachings in minute details will require a volume in itself. These are treated in detail in our book, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. So there's another really nice book called Teachings of Lord Chaitanya that can go into all these things. And it explains so much of the process of devotional service. I'll read it again. And, what our constitutional position of the living being is, as establishing that we are the servant of God rather than the Mayavad philosophy that we are God ourselves, and trying to just refigure out the transcendental position of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, understanding that the Supreme Person is above all of us conditioned living entities and what his position is. Well, also the cause of bondage under material conditions, how we are all bound up and suffering in this type of world around us. So the expansions, what's plenary part?
To be attended by all participants. It's a meeting that should be attended.
No, I think there's a different definition. Let me look. So that's one definition. That's of a meeting. Unqualified or absolute. So it would mean like and the absolute expansion, the Lord coming from a fully empowered place, expanding into this world, but he's still of that absolute nature. So that's at least my understanding. I could totally be wrong. But his expansions in different plenary portions of incarnations, coming down like Ram, Nrsimha, and so on, even the creations of the universe through different Vishnu forms and so on like this. Control of different parts of the universe. This is all explained how the Lord is operating the planets, how, the sun, the moon, the seasons, everything is operating in perfect unison and synchronization, how he's doing all of this. The nature of his transcendental abode, what's going on in the spiritual world beyond this, what kind of destination could we potentially look forward to that isn't filled with all the suffering and miseries that this one is. And it's all there. You're not going to be able to beat it. Death, disease, old age, it's coming for all of us. And if we don't figure it out, another birth and so on, and keep doing that thing. But there's hope, because there's this transcendental abode. Devotional activities, what we can do to kind of shift out of this normal activities that we do that bind us further in this material world and keep us chasing after happiness that never seems to come. There are different stages of development. The rules and regulations for achieving the gradual stages of spiritual perfection, how to develop the devotional activities and then achieve the different stages of spiritual perfection. It's a whole system. It's not like, it's not, it is easy, but it's also a commitment. There's a lot of commitment there. The symptoms of different incarnations in different ages, and how to detect them with reference to the context of revealed scriptures. All of these things have plenty of reference in the revealed scriptures. It's not just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is making up this philosophy. He's giving pramana or evidence from the scriptures. So anyway, we've explained a lot today. we started late, but now we're ending late. So I think we will end here. Just to summarize the Lord's conversation with the sannyasis, he's establishing the conclusions of the scriptures and establishing to hear the scriptures for what they are rather than taking well, in specific, Shankar's his interpretation of the Vedanta Sutra, and there's a few verses that they focus on. But there's a whole Vedic canon here, and we should, and especially the Srimad Bhagavatam, which we're trying to get into. But this intro is quite long. We're on part, I think, what, 17 or 16, something like that. I think part 17 today. And we've been doing this reading through it. I don't think we're that close to ending either. So anyway, thank you for joining. We'll continue to read through this. We're just kind of getting a basic understanding for some spiritual principles. It's going to help us actually approach the Bhagavatam. That's why Prabhupada put this in the intro. It's very important to go through this. And yeah, we will get to the Bhagavatam soon. Thank you so much for joining us online. We will end here. All right, Krishna, and I think I'm taking a break from this tomorrow, the service, but I think we'll go again maybe Friday and maybe Saturday even as well. So thank you again, and